then the doorway to pure mind opens up at the third eye, the place where the light is received, the light of consciousness is received, where inspiration comes, where insight happens, where inner vision happens, where we receive the guidance that we need to live our life in the best possible way. A lot of people are coming to yoga today to heal different imbalances and problems and challenges that they're experiencing in their life and in their bodies and in their mind. However, a lot of times when we come to the path of yoga, at least initially, the modern interpretation and the modern commodification, if you will, of this ancient spiritual system has really distorted and lost a lot of the purity and I would say the transformative effect that the practice really can offer when we look at the deeper energetics behind it. What we've done with Bhuta Yoga is we've analyzed and looked at the ancient scriptures and the teachings from Tantra and Hatha Yoga, and we've synthesized those teachings into a modern interpretation based on these ancient practices and the methodology of these spiritual sciences to create a very practical and straightforward approach that helps us address each of the levels of our being. As an introduction to the 5 great elements, I'd like to cover very briefly what the Pancha Mahabhutas are and how we work with them. Pancha means 5, Maha means great, Bhuta means element. This idea of the 5 great elements comes from an ancient school of Indian thought known as Samkhya. Samkhya provides the metaphysical and philosophical framework underneath yoga and tantra. When we look at yoga and tantra, we want to understand what is the point or what is the goal of these paths. And tantra talks about how the goal of the path is embodied liberation, to actually be totally and radically free while in a human experience. That idea is really the main inspiration that we use to infuse the path with Bhuta Yoga. As you may have heard earlier, we're also talking about Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga emerges out of Tantra. We cannot divorce Hatha Yoga from Tantric teachings. It is implied when we're speaking about traditional Hatha Yoga that it's Tantrik Hatha Yoga. I just wanted to make that very clear. In that path with Hatha Yoga, or Tantrik Hatha Yoga, as it were, we're working with the chakras and Kundalini. And the chakras, each of them corresponds to one of the 5 great elements. So we have earth at Muladhara, water at Svadhisthana, fire at Manipura, air or wind at Anahata, and the element of space at Vishuddha. The Agya chakra, the third eye, is considered beyond the 5 elements. It's the place of pure mind. As we look at each of these elements and their corresponding chakras, we also see that there's a corresponding sense organ attached to it. Sense of smell with earth, sense of taste with water, sense of sight with fire, sense of touch with air, and the sense of hearing with space. This is how we interpret reality through the 5 senses. And the yogis had a very interesting perspective about how to work with spirituality. The reason I say it's interesting is because they saw that everything in our world is actually a projection of our senses and ultimately a projection of our mind. And so if we're experiencing challenges or imbalances or issues with our health or our relationships or anything of that nature, basically anything of the world, then we look at the underlying energetics behind it. That's the path of Tantrik Hatha Yoga. Working with the chakras, working with the elements, working with Kundalini to lead us to a transformation of whatever it is that is not moving in an optimal way in our life, so that the energy can then return back to a harmonious, natural circulation between all things. That's really the point, right? To come into balance and harmony between ourselves as an individual and the cosmos. So how do we do that? Well, let's look at the earth element, for example. The earth element living in Muladhara corresponds to stability, steadiness, groundedness. Imbalance here often causes us to experience fear, disconnection, or a lack of belonging. So that's the first place the primal energy that's inside of all of us goes to make sure that our physical organism is secure. If we're not experiencing stability and security, then the energy cannot move past that center. We have to first make sure that we're grounded. Once that's taken care of, we move up to Svadhisthana, where the element of water lives. This is where desire begins. This is where our sense of individuality begins. The word Svadhisthana means self, Sva, Adhisthana, abode. So this is literally the abode of the self. It's where our preferences, our likes, our dislikes, all of the aspects that comprise our personality, this is where they originate. So you think about it, first we create the stability and the security in our life, and then we can start to become an individual, right? This is where creativity starts to happen. This idea of desire is something important to point out because it's desire that is the fuel that allows the energy to continue. If we get stuck on that level of desire in a sort of horizontal direction, right? A lot of times we connect addiction or attachment to sense pleasure in this area at Svadhisthana, at the hips and the sacrum. If we're not able to detach ourselves from those entanglements, meaning our energy continues to reach for the things in the material world that we think will satisfy us, then the energy can't continue to rise upward for spiritual transformation. Once we've got a handle on our likes and our dislikes and managed to apply our will to overcome those tendencies that we have to get stuck inside of the pursuit of pleasure, that's the center of will, the area of the solar plexus where the fire lives. So we need to use our will and we need to cultivate our will in order to allow the energy to continue to rise vertically along the central channel of the spine. At the level of the solar plexus, we're now dealing with our individuality, our willpower, our ability to make decisions, to set boundaries. A lot of times this is where people end up getting stuck. They may manage to get past the level of addiction and attachment to sense pleasure, but the ability to really make ourselves an individual in a world that seems to be threatening and to remain safe and using the energy of our desire effectively, now we're living in a place of power. And that place of power can often be misused. So when we're working here, we want to learn how to get into right relationship with power, and using certain principles of practice that we work with in the Bhūta Yoga Method, we cultivate this relationship to power. So that is the center of will at the solar plexus. As we continue to move upward now, we're in the heart. So at the heart is the element of air. This is connected to the wind, it's connected to the breath. With the air element, we look at its primary qualities. What are the primary qualities of the air? It wants to move, it wants to expand, it wants to be free. It's connected to the sense of touch. Many times when there's imbalance in this area, there's an inability to give and receive. Yeah? And so that's the heart, giving and receiving. A beautiful flow between our heart and our environment allows us to circulate the energy of the wind equally and harmoniously. So that's the heart. I like to think of the heart as once we've transcended the animal centers in the lower chakras, now at the heart, we're looking at the more divine qualities, yeah? The space of we instead of just I, right? Taking care of safety, taking care of needs, taking care of our individuality, which is in relationship to our ego. Creating a healthy ego allows us then to be an individual, but be in service to the whole. Yeah, and that's at the heart. Once we've taken care of that and create balance in this area, you can think activities related to the breath really help us bring balance to this area. Now we move up to the level of the throat, Vishuddha chakra. The element of space lives here. Space is connected to sound. This is where we start to introduce the subtler sciences of yoga. A lot of people don't ever reach this level. Many times people get stuck in, I call it asana land, where the physical practice is so enthralling and continuing to keep us captivated. But as we work through the physical and get into more of the energetic and then rise up further into the subtler realms, that's when the higher stages of yoga start to open up. And that's when the real bliss and the connection that we experience between ourselves and all things is available. That's here, the level of space, right? Space is the element in which all things manifest. It's the first place that light comes down and becomes form. I'd like to recap that for you so you have an understanding of this map. We have light, consciousness, the indivisible, undifferentiated energy of life. That light has descended, for whatever reason, into the form that we see and experience as life. as our bodies, as our minds. We're not just a physical body, right? We have multiple layers to our experience of life. This light is going through these layers one by one, gradually, as it descends all the way to the earth, which is the densest of the elements. We think about it, that light, that indivisible, undifferentiated energy must go through a systematic and intelligent progression in order to configure itself so that it can become the world. What we're doing in the path of yoga and tantra, and specifically with the Bhūta Yoga Method, is working our way backwards, starting with the root, up the vertical axis of the spine. Once we pass the throat, the element of space, right? Each of these chakras and each of these elements corresponds to a different dimension of our world. But as we work through them and get to the subtlest level, then the doorway to pure mind opens up at the third eye. The place where the light of consciousness is received, where inspiration comes, where insight happens, where inner vision happens, where we receive the guidance that we need to live our life in the best possible way. So that's the map. We're making our way back. It is the return journey home, as I like to call it. It's a very fascinating and interesting science, and it's been mapped out for us for more than 1,000 years. So let's put it to work. This is what we do with Bhuta Yoga. If you want to download the free PDF, we have one in the description below. This will give you access to an overview of what I just shared. It'll also share some techniques and the principles of practice that we use to develop each of these areas of our life. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe, hit the like button below, leave me a comment, let me know how it landed for you. And again, make sure you grab that PDF. It's filled with a ton of great information about everything that we just talked about. Stay tuned for future videos, and thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure to share with you on the spiritual sciences of Tantrik Hatha Yoga. See you soon.